All right, well, hey everyone, welcome back to the React Native TDD stream. At least for now, it's React Native TDD. Once we finish up this project in a month or two or something, we'll move on to something else. But glad you're here. Anybody joining on the stream, anybody watching the recording later, I'm just glad to have you along for the ride. Testing in React Native is kind of a brave new world, and we're just forging a path. Luckily, some folks in the last couple of years have put together some pretty sweet tools. So we've been using Detox, we've been using Enzyme, Jest and Mocha, interestingly. It's just kind of funny how that's come together. You can watch the past episodes to learn a little bit more about that. And today we're moving on to our feature number 2. So we have been test driving kind of at length our first feature. Our app is called Opinion 8. We are, it's like Opinion space ATE. It's a little pun. Just so funny. It's great. We are going to track in this app restaurants and dishes at them and how we rate dishes 1 to 5 stars. I'm going to find a lot of use out of this. Hopefully you will as well. And so far, the feature we've been working on is just adding a restaurant to our list of restaurants. We've gotten that covered some edge cases. We've used component tests, end-to-end tests. And in between the episodes, I've done a little bit more work to clean up some edge cases there. You can see in the show notes a link to the repo. So if you want to pull it down and try it out yourself, you can. Sort of an example app running all these tests. So the extra pull request I made here, more modal cleanup. So I cleared out, we added a validation error to our form. I'll show it to you here. So when you're adding a restaurant, if you try to save it and there's nothing there, a required error shows up. So I updated it so that when you type, the error is cleared out. Or if somehow that error is still there when the window is closed, it's cleared out then as well. So that just kind of cleared that up. I felt like I wanted to move on to something new this week to kind of get some forward progress. So we're going to move on to our next feature, which is adding a dish underneath a restaurant. That's kind of the first thing we have to do. We got to get a restaurant to have the dishes and a dish under the restaurant before we can do anything else with it. So in a sense, it's kind of similar, but it's going to drive us into some navigation. And we've been using React Navigation as our navigation library. We already have it in the app, actually, because I wanted a title bar at the top, and I knew navigation was coming. And so we just went ahead and plopped in React Navigation so I could continue to be as lazy as possible with the visuals in the app. We're going to get to use React Navigation a little bit further in this episode now as we get into driving out the second feature. So let's jump right in. Let's confirm that our tests are all running fine. Actually, let's create a new branch. Add dish. All right, we'll rerun the unit tests here. Jody, thanks for saying, hey, yeah, I forgot I'm wearing the headphones. I guess I'm not actually listening to anything in particular, but I've still got my headphones on for some video calls earlier, so I'll just keep them on, since you gave me a compliment. That's great. Thanks for joining as usual, Jody. All right, did our unit test pass? They did, and now let's run Detox to confirm our end-to-end test pass as well. Takes just a second to get started. Here we go. We're good. It's walking through. In my headphones, I get a nice, satisfying clicky sound as it taps on the keys. That's fun. All right, great. So our current tests are passing, so we're ready to add in something new. So we have one end-to-end test here called Managing Restaurants. And then we have one test underneath the test suite file that says it should allow creating a restaurant. So typically when you're writing Jest or Mocha tests, you would create another test here and say it should allow adding a dish. And that's what you'd typically do. But I mentioned a little bit earlier that typically when it comes to end-to-end tests, because they're slow, because there's a lot of turnaround there, we end up combining the tests together into one long feature tour. And I need to credit a friend of mine, Jay Hayes, for introducing me to this concept and showing me kind of how it worked out in practice. So one thing is, if we had these tests separately here, they could be run individually. It would be easy to drop a dot only in them. But then things would get really flaky if they built on one another. Like say the dish test assumed that a restaurant had already been created. Well, then that would be flaky if we just added a dot only down here. And conversely, if we had the dish test redo the steps from creating a restaurant to create a restaurant again, that would be slow and a lot of repetitive work. And it would be fine for now, but our test suite would get longer and longer over time. So instead, for end-to-end tests, what I tend to do, and I've seen in Ruby as well, is to do something a bit different. It's a bit atypical, and just to create functions, like create restaurant, and to call functions within your tests. And that can just be declared down here. and then you just move the contents of your test down to here. We do want to make it an async function and await it up here to use good old async and await. But other than this, so that with this refactor, things should work just the same, but we've now included our test content in one single sub-function within the test. So let's just rerun our detox test to make sure it still works. I've turned on more auto-completion in Visual Studio Code today, so we'll see if it gets in my way or what. And it's running just fine. And we're good, it's passing. So I'm going to commit this. Extract a function within feature tour E2E test. So we're extracting a function within the feature tour end-to-end test. And so to kind of visualize what I was saying earlier, now we can create a function called create dish. And this will allow us to kind of see the overall feature tour at a high level while having things broken down, but they can't easily be broken up into separate tests. So this communicates to the user, these really all need to be run together. And I think that's helpful. So let's create a function here. Create dish, and let's think through. Again, we're going to do test-driven development. That's the whole point of the stream. So we're starting with the test, and we're going to walk through what are the steps that a user would go through. Well, like we've already created a restaurant, and so on this restaurant, we want to now click into it. And so let's do this. Let's assume that the restaurant is already present in the list here. So we're going to say we're going to find element, not expect. We're going to find the element by label, restaurant name, and then we're going to tap on it. So some element on the screen that has the text of the restaurant name. Okay, so we're tapping on the restaurant name, and then what's going to happen next? Actually, well, things are going to be actually pretty similar. Let's assume on the restaurant screen, we're going to have a new dish button. Let's just make it, I'm glad these button names are nice and explicit so we don't get confused about what screen we're on. So we tap on a new dish button. I'm going to copy this as well. This is going to be very parallel. So the functionality in the core of the story itself is going to be pretty similar, but the wiring up of the multiple screens and getting into React navigation is what's going to get fun and different. So we're going to say dish name text field. We're going to type in the dish name. So let's just create a dish name equals a volcano roll. I think that's spicy, so I think I don't actually tend to eat volcano rolls because I don't have much of a stomach for spiciness, but that's what comes to mind. And a California roll is just too cliche, so we're not going to do that. So we're going to do a volcano roll, and then we're going to add a button. And again, I've made the name of the button, this test ID, this accessibility on the ID on the button very explicit, so that we can be sure that we're on the dish screen when this gets tapped. Okay, so we're going to save the dish button, and I think we're going to pretty much start very similar things. I'm expecting this to be implemented in a similar way with a modal. So we're going to expect that the dish name is visible. We're going to expect that the dish text field is not visible, again, to make sure that that modal has gone away. And again, we're going to write, as I've mentioned before in an earlier episode, for an end-to-end test, we're going to write out the whole test at the start. I'm going to actually stop the unit test here since it's distracting me a bit. We write out the whole end-to-end test from the start, and then we're going to go through it and we're going to fix one error at a time. So let's run this test. And we're going to see, we haven't implemented this functionality, so we expect it to fail, and we're just going to see at what point it fails. Okay, got an error. And the error is that restaurant name is not defined on line 25. You may or may not believe me, but I saw this coming. I was just going to let the test tell us. So this restaurant name variable we create up here needs to be available down here as well. So one thing that you could do is move this. This is good that it's already in a variable. You could move the variable up to the top here. And then this restaurant name is available everywhere down here. So that's one option. In the past, I've seen it passed in explicitly to the functions. So let's stick with that, since that's what I've been thinking of, and that's what I've been doing based on my friend Jay's recommendations. So let's just do that. And this is kind of just a very explicit approach which shows where the data is coming from. We've got a restaurant name up here. We're passing it into the functions. We're passing it into create restaurant and into create dish. And so that way we can see we're creating this restaurant and we're creating a dish that matches it. That kind of communicates at the overall test level the story that we're telling. So let's try that. Let's see if that gets us past that test, past that failure. And again, there's a little waiting that happens here as we let this test run. Okay, let's scroll up. And remember, the detox test failures are a little bit verbose, but we can dig into them. So it's the test, should allow creating a restaurant, of course. Huh. Oh, so check this out. The test was named should allow creating a restaurant, but now that's no longer accurate because create restaurant is just one of the steps. So let's rename this to say should allow managing restaurants. That's a little more generic, which will help me realize that I need to dig in a little bit more in depth. Sam says that's an awesome pattern. Thank you, Sam, for the encouragement. I like it. I was very surprised to learn about it myself, but it pays off over time. All right, so now thinking about what line we were on, though, I think it was saying... It does not say what line we're on, but that's okay because we can look into the magic. There's an UI element that it can't find. And we're looking for the new dish button. So what we've said is we tap on the restaurant name, and then we're looking for the new dish button. So the problem is actually not mainly that the new dish button isn't there, but also that we haven't gone to a new dish screen. So rather than just putting the new dish button on this page, let's go ahead and build out that additional screen that the button is going to go onto. All right, so let's check it out. I might have actually put in React Navigation off screen. I forget. So let's see how it's set up. And actually, in process of preparing for this stream, I put together a quick reference sheet because I'm not in React Navigation day to day, and their docs are really, really nice. But it was spread out a little bit. So I liked kind of having the reference all in one place. So I will be using this, and I'm just going to move this right over to the cheater monitor over here to make it look like I know what I'm talking about. But we can actually look in the code here how things are already set up. So in our app.js, what we're doing, we're calling this method from React Navigation called create stack navigator. So a stack is a, I forget the name in native iOS development, but basically like the utility view where you have a screen and then you tap in to get to the next screen and you can pop back up to the top. So right now we have a screen named home, and the component is called restaurant list. That's the component that's shown. And then in our app component, we just take this root stack component and we render it out. The reason I've set this up is I am assuming at some point we're going to add some state management, and so we're probably going to need to wrap our root stack with some provider components or something like that. So this just sets us up to be extensible and ready for the future. So this is our stack configuration, and then after that, restaurant list is mostly standard. There's just a little bit of a navigation option here for the title. So let's just take a look at here and start from here and see what we need to do. So that screen is called home. I think I want to rename it and go ahead and rename it to restaurants, because that'll be more descriptive, because probably the second one's going to be called dishes. And I could even call it restaurant list. So let's call it restaurant list. And just while we're thinking ahead, let's run detox just while we're thinking about other stuff to make sure that that doesn't break anything. So let's assume we have dish list here. And we're going to need to import this dish list. Oh, and so this has errored out. Oh, but that's probably the same error. Yeah, it's gotten to the point where it's looking for the new dish button. So yes, we're right in the same place as we were, so that's fine. So let's proceed ahead down here. We're going to create a dish list component. Just put them all in the same directory for now until we need to add folders, because Dan Abramov has recently said that that's the React folder structure, is put stuff in there and create folders when you need them. So we're going to do it. All right, we want a dish list. And I'm tempted to just copy and paste the restaurant list, but I definitely don't want to. Well, I would do that if I was not being formal, but let's stick with the formal process and let TDD teach us. So we're going to need some kind of component, though. React. All right, so I'm going to look at restaurant list to make sure we want a class. Yeah, class is good. Dish list. Component. Render. Oop. That autocomplete was not helpful. And we're just going to return null for now. That's okay. Just enough to get it to pass. You got to tell it it's a class. A class. Doesn't like React being in there, although, yeah, there's no create element. Let's go ahead and just import the view from React Native, and we'll return a view and a closing view. All right, that's more typical. Okay, so we have a dish list now, and so now when we run the test, we should actually see it take us to that screen. It should be a blank screen. Oh, no, of course we haven't. We haven't hooked up the navigation itself. But let's just, all right, since I've started the run anyways, we'll just make sure it doesn't blow up any sooner than it already did. And then the next thing we're going to want to do is to add the navigation itself. Sure enough, we're still looking for new dish button, and we still see as the test ended that we're still on the restaurant screen. So now we need to implement functionality for the flat list. And I've forgotten to bring up on my cheater monitor the API for flat list to see what the name of that is. It's on press or on tap or something like that. On press item. There we go. So within the flat list, we want to implement press on press item. Look through the page. Yeah, we'll just go to this.handle choose restaurant. Okay, so let's make an arrow function class property. And so then now we can look at our React navigation quick reference. So in here, when we're on a screen and we want to navigate, a prop called navigation is provided to the component. And we can call a navigate method on it. We can pass other parameters if we need them, and I think we will in this case. But I'll hold off until absolutely necessary. And then we pass the name of the screen that we're navigating to, so you can navigate to more than one. All right, so let's implement that. I do like this pattern of destructuring out of the props, so you have a nice little navigation variable. So let's do that here. Navigation navigate, and we're gonna go to, we call it dish list. So navigate to dish list. Let's run this at least by itself and make sure that takes us to the screen. Well, let's hold off on passing the parameter to it until we absolutely need it. We may even do that in refactor and cleanup afterwards if the tests don't actually drive us to get there. So hopefully this will take us there. Nope, no luck. So what have we done? Handle choose restaurant, handle choose restaurant, on press item. It is an arrow function class property, so it should have access to the same this. Let us look here through here some more and see. This on press item. Is that within? Oh no, yeah, that's not within the flat list. That's within the item itself, this my list item class. So let's actually check. So we are using within here, yeah, render item is list item. So I think it's within there that we want to do something. So let's do that. This closing component tag needs to go in here. And we're using React Native Elements. So let's pull up React Native Elements and see if their list item has any particular thing we need to call. On press. All right, sounds good. Nice and straightforward. A nice standard React Native API. That's kind of what we would expect. So we got handle choose restaurant here, and then we're going to be able to pass in data when we need it. All right, so let's see here. We've got a flat list. It's rendering the item. The item is a list item, and it's got an on press on it. So let's give that a try, and we can quickly see over here. That could be something we could have hot reloaded. Hot reloading is a bit less necessary with TDD because we could run the test to get us back to where we were. Great, okay, so navigation has happened. We've been taken to a screen, and it's a blank screen with no content being shown and no title being shown. Excellent. This is what we want to see within TDD. I think we'll have the same error still because the new dish button isn't being shown, and so that's all good. So we're just going to take a test-driven approach and just do enough to solve this next error now that we have the right screen to be able to put it on. So let's import button. Let's put it on a new line from React Native Elements. And again, we're using React Native Elements here just to get a nice look and feel so that I don't have to do any styling on the components. Button. We're going to use our old friend, the test ID property, to set the iOS accessibility ID and also make it accessible in tests. New dish button. I do want to go ahead and give it a name because the test is not going to drive us there to have a button label, but I do want to have a button label. Title. And let's just, while we're thinking about it, let's go ahead and check on the restaurant list and make sure it's parallel. Title new restaurant, so we'll call this one new dish. Cool. So with this, the element should be able to be found to be tapped on. So let's rerun the test and see if that's the case. It's not going to do anything, but we'll let the next error in the test come up, or the next test failure. We'll let that drive us to where to go. Okay, new dish is there. If it showed up on the stream, there was a tap animation there real quick as it happened. And now it says, type volcano roll. I'm looking for the dish name text field, and I can't find it. All right, so we want to add that dish name text field. So in the past, well, actually, yeah, we went ahead last time and used some component testing to drive out the creation of a modal, to actually make a new modal to pop up, because that's where we want that to happen. And we'll do the same thing here. So I am going to cheat for sure and take a look at the existing code to see what I want to write, but I am still going to test drive it as necessary. So it's okay to kind of compare. Now, add restaurant modal. This may end up being fairly similar to the add dish modal. And so I'm debating. When I've done this exercise before in this framework or other frameworks, I've actually created a separate component. And so I think I am going to create a separate component here. Although it's interesting, the fact that we would need to duplicate the tests is an interesting temptation. Like that's a pressure. That's a design pressure that encourages us to maybe find a way to reuse the existing code instead of duplicate it. So let's think about that for a second. It would be nice if this was just an add thing modal. The other side that comes to mind, though, is right now a restaurant and a dish just have a name field, but I feel like those might diverge in the future. And I feel like if I edit a restaurant, I may want to reuse the add restaurant field for editing as well, and that may be the avenue of reuse there. So I think I've convinced myself that for now, I'm going to go ahead and create an add dish modal that's separate. We're going to follow along in the same pattern very much, and we're just going to see how that all turns out. So, and we'll see how much quicker it goes now that we have this example of a custom modal to be able to add another one. All right, so we're going to want to just follow the pattern in here. I'm going to copy and paste the code. We're going to want to have an add dish modal. This might be enough classes that we might want to start organizing things into subfolders. We'll see. All right, the add dish modal is going to be referenced down here. Now I suppose we could hold off on adding the visible property until we absolutely need it, until the test drives us there. So I think let's do, should we do that? I'm going to be bad. I'm going to add it in already. I know it's a modal. I know I'm going to want it to start out invisible and get visible later. But let's just get it in place and get it working, and then I'll add it. Going back and forth. These are the things that go through my head as I code. We don't even have a class yet. We don't even have a file. Let's do that first. All right, so we got our add dish modal, and just down to the bottom here, we'll move our add restaurant modal. We'll just get most of the basics. It is going to be use a React Native modal as part of it. And we'll come back to the React Native elements. But we're going to make the add dish modal. And again, at this point, just setting up the very basics of the component, I'm not going to worry about unit testing, component testing. And at this point, I would save that until after we have some real behavior, some real functionality of the component. Ooh, that autocomplete also was not helpful. Say visible true. I think this is our copying over. We can keep animation slide, type slide in. It's no problem. Get this return statement formatted. It does not like HTML entities must be okay. So that's not an HTML entity. All right, great. So yeah, dish name text field is what we were looking for. So that's what we want to get in order to get this passing. So I see, just following the pattern here, we're using React Native elements with form labels and form inputs. And I see a title text at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and follow those same patterns and move those things over. I'm not going to include all the imports we need just yet. But at least these three will be good. All right. Text, form label, form input. Add dish. We even got our little margin there to get the status bar to show up okay. It'll be amazing to have our component look decent at the start. It's amazing. All right, form label will be dish name. We already see dish name text field is what we need. That's what we'll call this here. Let's take off the value handling right now, but we'll keep auto-focusing in. Again, like I'll just, if you already know you need it, you know you need it. But I'm going to, and I'm pretty sure I need it, but I want to add it in conceptually, and I might even do small commits as we go here. So we'll see about that. So I believe that this will fix our current error and get us on to the next error. So let's validate that by running it. It's a good practice. I learned this practice from Jay as well. Before you run the test, or in my case, as I'm running the test, I think about what I expect the behavior to be. I guess I could have thought about what I expect the error itself to be as well. So let's see here. Tap sushi place. Interesting. Cannot find the sushi place to tap. So I'm not sure why that happened. That seems like the sushi place element was not yet showing up. So let's just run it on here and see if we can see during the test run what's happening. All right, so that might have been a little bit of flakiness there because we have gotten to the next screen and we've gotten to the add dish screen. And now it looks like the new dish button is not accessible because the modal appears right away. And this is because we set it to, back in the dish list, to not have visible. We hard-coded visible. Where is it? We hard-coded visible for the modal to true. So this is great. So like already in our test, we can see that the hiding and showing of the modal is covered by the test. And so we need to implement that. So that's great. So we'll go ahead and add that. We will... Oh yeah, that's passed in as a prop. I forgot that because I don't use prop types. I just pass them in willy-nilly, like a crazy person. So we're gonna just keep that up and just see how painful it gets. So in our add dish modal, we're gonna pass in a visible prop, and that's gonna be the is add modal visible variable, which is gonna come from the state in the dish list. Let's go ahead and implement that. Is add modal visible. I'm gonna start it with false. Down in our render method, we're going to leave that there, extract it from the state. And let's run this to see this happening. Again, I might not always run it this frequently, but it's nice to get a little bit of a visual. So then we'll add in the toggling of that visibility flag. So right now I expect we're going to get the error that we can't. Yeah, that didn't work. All right, so I think in the add dish modal, we're not using this visible flag yet. So let's see if that's the case. Yeah, visible is still hard-coded to true, so that's not what we want. So what we want to do is down in our render method, extract the visible property. It's not really down in our render method because that's the only thing in there right now. Now we're using the visible property passed in, and so it should start hidden. I might take bigger steps, but right now, like, think about if you're in a problem that was really hard, you felt really uncertain about. Like, you could run these tests this frequently, and you can have the assurance, like, I've at least made that much progress. So we've at least managed to make the modal not show up at the start. Now we just need to toggle it to show once new dish is tapped. And we have that happening in the restaurant list already. So where that is, in the button, we have an on press. And instead of show add restaurant modal, we show add dish modal. We add a nice little class property arrow function. Call it show add dish modal, and we set the state is add modal visible to true. So I think this will get us past that error, and we're going to get the modal showing up, and we're going to get the text field enterable. So I think this is going to finally get us to our next test failure in the end-to-end test. Yep, sure enough, tap in on new dish, open up the modal. We're able to type in volcano roll, so that's new. And the next error we've gotten is we don't have the save dish button. So that's very easy to fix. That's not something that needs a component test or anything like that. We can just implement the button. Let's plop it right in. We'll just do the save button for now. We see the cancel button in there as well, but we'll come back to that. Button. Save dish button is what the test is going to want, and we'll go ahead and give it a name, save dish. Just to stick with those small steps, we'll remove the on-press handler functionality, and we'll just confirm, just getting past the current test, that we can actually tap on the save dish button. Not always needed to take steps this small, but that's what I'm going to do right now. Cool. So far having these multiple screens through React Navigation hasn't made much of a difference. Our testing is pretty similar to what we've done before, with the added guardrails of, or guides of having some similar components already implemented in a pattern that we can follow. But we're being cautious not to copy and paste wholesale, but to just stick with what our tests are driving us to. All right, so now we've got, let's go back to our test to see. We've now been able to tap on the Save Dish button, and we now have gotten to this expectation. We're expecting that the dish name is visible on the screen as a label. So what this is expecting is that our modal is actually closed, and the dish name is actually added to the list of the screen that we were on. So let's implement that. All right. So in the add dish modal as compared to the add restaurant modal, we're going to want to handle the, I'll press save button. I wonder if I will. I think, I'm feeling, you can judge me if I'm not being TDD enough, but I'm feeling like for the sake of this screencast, I'm going to not drop down to the component level. I'm going to stay at the end-to-end test level. It's going to be a little more expedited for us, and I have a clear pattern that I'm following here, so I feel more confident about it. I might go in between before next week and add the component test in, but I think this will keep us moving, and this is an example of something you can do when you feel a greater degree of confidence. Like, you don't have to step down to the component test level every time. All right, so we have a handle press save button, and it's pretty big here. So let's, again, even though we're taking this bigger step, let's try to only include the code that we need. Let's not reset the state right now. Let's not do the validation check right now, but we do want to call this onSave property because that's how we're going to communicate back to our parent test. And the state, we're going to call it dish name. So now we're going to need to save the state of this dish. So let's put that in. We'll use this initial state pattern. This is something that we use on my client project right now as a nice way to reset initial state. And in the in-between work I did, I used this for ease of clearing out the form. So we'll just follow that pattern now that we have it. So we set the state equal to initial state there. We do also, so we want to extract the dish name from the state and pass it to onSave. And then we also want to go ahead and handle change text. We want a controlled component here and use that to set the dish name into the state of the component. And that's going to require us in the form input to have an onChange text. And we want to set the initial value, or the value as it's updated, to dish name. And we're going to extract that dish name from the state. So I think the dish name will flow all the way through. This is now going to call this onSave method passed into it. And let's go ahead and through. Again, this is a pattern we followed before, so we feel more confident about it. We can reference our earlier code, and we're not writing without test coverage. We are writing with the end-to-end the coverage of the end-to-end test, and we are trying to do our best to write only the minimal code as we go. So I feel good about that. So in the restaurant list, let's follow the pattern here. In the modal, and then in the dish list by comparison, we have our modal. We're going to pass an onSave event handler to it. Handle add dish. I find that when I have some repetitive code like this, naming the function with like the word dish or restaurant in it helps me orient me to where I am in the code, and it also helps me in case I've had some kind of copy paste error. It helps me to think a bit more intentionally about what I'm doing. Okay, so in the dish list, we're handling add the dish. We want a new dish name. Dish name, so it's adding it to the list of dish names. So now in our state, we want to have some dish names as well. Dish names. And these dish names, the reason that we're handling the adding of the dish and putting it into a dish name list is because we want to output it. And so we're going to be able to copy and paste this non-trivial code here about this list with the flat list, with all that we've learned there about how the styling of lists and list items in React Native elements can work well with a flat list for performance purposes. So those go together, so that's really nice. So let's think about this. Restaurant names is there, so we want to extract the list of dish names instead. We're extracting the dish names from the state. I do like the unused variable lint check that I put back in. So this now tells me that I need to use it down below. So we have a list with some flex styling applied. We pass the dish names to here. We extract the key, and then in the item, we have that in the list. And I don't want to add the on press next. I want to keep this simpler for now and just have the display of the item. Because remember, the error that we're looking for is the label volcano roll visible somewhere on the screen? And this is how we expect it to do it, is for it to be added in through this callback to handle add dish, to be added into the dish name state, and then to be displayed in the list here. So that's, based on some people's approach to TDD, that's a fair number of steps. Sometime I really want to go through and see if I can minimize that, get it down to smaller steps. It's a good exercise, but I don't think it's necessary for right now. And for pragmatic TDD, this seems good. So let's watch. We're adding a restaurant. We're tapping the restaurant, adding the dish. We tap to save it. We go back to the screen, but the dish is not showing up in the list, so I'm not actually sure why, so let's look into it. Let's make sure that the error we see is what we expect. We expected the volcano roll to show up on there, but we didn't. So yeah, let's trace this through here. Masher for sufficiently visible. It could be that there's something about the styling. Yeah! I don't know why this occurred to me. I must have run into this recently. I think it's the styling of the flex. And I think it might actually be the fact that I see a gray background here. Because check this out. If I go back to restaurants, there's a white background. And that's because the background of the view, or the background in React navigation, is gray by default, I think. But the background, if you get a React Native Elements list to expand to the full area, it has a white background. So that's actually really lucky, because this screencast could have taken a very abrupt end there if we hadn't figured that out. So yeah, and having this code to compare against has helped me to see that. So I have a view with style flex 1. I'm going to copy that over to here, and let's see if all of our flex styling follows, because that's certainly not intuitive to me. All right, dish list, view style flex 1, view style flex 1, and then list container style flex 1, list container style flex 1. I remember that was the style that was not intuitive and didn't give me, wasn't intuitive to me before. That's all the flex styling I see in here. This, I could argue that this is one of the advantages of applying as little styling as possible while you're building out your app, so you can see the things that really matter. That's probably just me justifying myself. But yeah, let's see if this has helped. So sushi place is added. We tap on new dish. It's added there. We save the dish. And volcano roll shows up and our test passes. That's awesome. That's very exciting. I'm glad we got some time to dig into something else. Okay, so I guess I didn't add these tests as individual steps, so let's go ahead and do that. Or let's just add it in. We'll review the parts of the files that changed. Yeah, so this was... Oh yeah, you know what? Let me actually do the renaming of this test as a separate step, because that would feel nice and clean. So I can split, edit. If you haven't done adding via patch, it's really nice. It allows you to just edit the diff that's going in. So now the diff is just the renaming of that test. I got it wrong. All right, so it should allow creating a restaurant. Oh yeah, that's what I need to do. It should allow managing restaurants, and then this stuff all needs, I don't want to delete anything else, I want it to stay the same. All right, I think this diff should be right. Okay, so that's the diff, so we can commit that and say, rename test for clarity. Now let's go back to adding everything. So here, I'm confused. Oh, well, you know, this has us splitting up the functions and stuff like that. Create restaurant, create dish. Oh, I see what's happened here. Before we just had create restaurant, but then now we've moved the restaurant name up to there and put in the dish. We could pull that out as a separate commit, but I think this is just fine. So we got the create dish test. We've got in our navigation here these two different screens. Dish list is added in. On the restaurant list, we have handling for navigation. We have hooking up that navigation to go to there. You know, I could have committed it when we had added the dish list screen in, but that's okay that I didn't. Okay, then we have a dish list and add dish modal. And those are not covered by component tests. Let me make a note of my personal notes over here to afterwards add component tests, because I just like that for coverage. We'll add these two new components, and we'll say this is get adding dish working. So I already see, so the test-driven development has a red-green refactor cycle. So we wrote a big end-to-end test and went red, and then we fixed every error until we've gotten to the point where our test is green again. And let me just get it run one more time while I'm talking. So we've got that green right in front of us. So now that our test is green, our end-to-end test, we can think about refactoring. Is there anything we want to clean up? So let's take a look here. I will make a note to myself to add secondary functionality to, just to get the cancel button and that kind of handling and stuff like that. So, but one thing I saw, and this is something that I noticed in looking through things, we can actually use a shorthand here for these components. So we don't need to provide this config object if all we're configuring is the screen. We could just pass the component as the value, and here we'll pass this component as the value. And actually, as you're probably familiar, my font might be throwing you off with the italics here, but if just if you have for sufficiently advanced uses of modern JavaScript, if the key and value in an object are the same, you can use the object property shorthand. And so we can just pass in restaurant list and dish list like that. I've named these components a name that kind of corresponds with the name we want to use for navigation anyways. So I think this will work, and this will keep things nice and simple for us. And it seems like in general, React Navigation, the default way to configure things is within the component itself. So we don't need to really configure anything else at the Stack Navigator level here. And it's just nice and convenient to be able to see at a glance what the components are. I like that lack of repetition. So let's commit this. It passed just fine. So let's commit this as a simplification. Simplify React Navigation config. And that's nice. So let's take a quick glance through here. I think another thing is we don't have a title showing up in our field here. So in the main screen we have the restaurant's title, but on the Sushi Place screen we don't have anything. And so you can see when we come up here that no title is showing up. You might have seen something else that went wrong as well. I'm glad that happened. So we'll come back to that in just a second. I don't think we need the test. I mean, think about the story that this test is telling. It's we can confirm that the title shows up. I don't know that it's that important. I think let's try. Let's try and see if it's simple. Running a quick expectation in Detox isn't a big problem. If you think it's going to be unreliable and cause your test to be flaky, then that could be problematic. But let's see. And let's see if... the thing that makes me hesitant to do it is because the expectation we would do would be expect element by label restaurant name to be visible. And it kind of already was visible on the screen before, so unless we got more specific to assert something in the title bar, it wouldn't be able to work. I see a question here. Jody says, like the gap command. It's very selective. Is that something you can easily share? Yeah, actually, this is in my my bash profile. It's a git shortcut that I've done. It's a git add -p for patch, and that will allow you to review your changes one change at a time. So I'll make a note to share git shortcuts. I'll share those offline. I've just kind of accrued some that I want as I find them useful, but it is helpful because I do like to review all my changes, especially in a test-driven approach. You want to confirm that you're making as small changes as you can at a time and to make sure that every change is intentional. And so as you're experimenting and trying to figure things out, just like you saw me do, I found that I really wanted to make smaller commits out of all my changes, and so doing git add patch allowed me to do that. So yeah, it's git add -p, and I'll share some other ones afterwards on the Twitch channel or Twitter or somewhere like that. So, sweet. So I think I've convinced myself that I don't actually want to assert the title now because it would be hard to do without kind of coupling to implementation. So let's just drop the restaurant name title into there. If you look through for React Navigation in the restaurant list, when you have a fixed title, you can put it here in a static navigation options. But in this case, we want a title that actually takes, it varies depending on the value we tapped on. We want it to be Sushi Place to be the title in this case. So let's move my cheater screen back over. And so we can see on this detail screen, they have a detail screen a lot like ours. And so we actually have a navigation options function here that takes the navigation object in, and we can get params that way. So let's copy this over, and that'll allow us to have a dynamic title in there. And then we're just going to visually test it. We don't need to have an automated test for it. We're not that strict. All right, here. So in my dish list, we have a navigation options. We take the navigation object. And so we'll take a parameter we pass in, and we'll say restaurant name. And I think this is probably a default value. So let's just try omitting that and see what happens. So this is not enough though. We need to pass in a restaurant name. And so that comes back in here in our restaurant list. Now remember, when we handled choosing a restaurant, we are navigating to dish list. So we want to be able to pass in the options, and we want to pass in the option restaurant name. Before we get any more dynamic, let's just pass in hello. And we'll, do you want to rerun the test to do it? Yeah, let's just do it manually here. That's okay. We tap on it, and sure enough, hello does show up. So if we have a restaurant name to pass here, it is going to be correctly retrieved up in navigation options. Thank you, React Navigation. Excellent docs for that. So now we just want to make this dynamic. And I think the way I probably want to do that is probably to bind to it right here, and probably to say arrow function, handle choose restaurant, and to pass into their item. Yeah, I think the item at this point is, I can even use modern ES syntax to rename this restaurant name. And that way we can just see this is the restaurant name and this is the restaurant name. So now that handle choose restaurant should be past the restaurant name that we've selected. We'll pass it in there, and then we'll just use the object property shorthand to pass that along to here. In fact, we can probably just put that in one line. That's nice and descriptive. Navigate to dish list and pass along the restaurant name. All right, so let's just do this by hand since we don't need the automated test. Sure enough, the restaurant name is passed to the top there, and that's really great. It's coming in back and forth. It's good. I feel like the native animation might be a little similar than that. I'm not 100% sure, but that's okay. We've got a nice JavaScript-based navigation here. So let's make this commit. Add this in, add this in. I'm okay with including if I wanted to make tiny, tiny commits, I could have this renamed to restaurant name in a separate commit. So I'm okay with having that in here. Add dish list nav item title. Cool, so that title's coming up. So let's run the detox test commit again, and I can show you the problem I noticed a minute ago, and maybe you noticed it as well. Sushi place. We save the restaurant. We add the volcano roll. So the volcano roll is added. And so then if we navigate back and go back to sushi place, the volcano roll is gone. And the reason why is because we haven't stored it anywhere permanently. We've just stored it in component state. So when that component goes away, it's cleared out. Those dish names are cleared out. So we don't want to store it in a component state. We want to store it with the restaurant. And so this, I think, brings us to, we've got about 12 minutes left on the stream. This brings us to the point where we can start to refactor, instead of just storing restaurant names, storing the whole restaurant. I'm going to do my best to get this working, this state management working with just plain React component state. I think when I was doing this on my own, I think we got to the point where I needed to use a state store instead. So we might reach for something or other. I'm not sure yet which one I might reach for, so we'll see. You can barrage me with your recommendations on React state stores to use. But let's at least get our component state as close as we can. And I think I might even be able to reproduce a problem that I experienced. So, and you could be not forgiven, like you could be very justified in storing restaurants from the start instead of restaurant names, because knowing that you would have ultimately an object to store stuff in. So we want to store a restaurant object that has the name and that has the dishes for the restaurant. And that way we've got a nice object that's set up and it's all grouped together as a object graph, ready for us to store and persist to the server however we want. So we have a nice test suite now. So let's just run our component tests as well. We're going to be able to rerun our tests as we do refactorings here to store entire restaurants. And I think that is really just going to be a matter of changing the restaurant list, at least at first. So let's try to think. Let's try to make, we got 11 minutes left. Let's try to make the change whole hog. So let's call this restaurants, indicating that we're going to store an entire restaurant object. And let's just go from the top of the component going down. Make sure these component tests run. Yep, that's fine. That's actually interesting. Oh, because I haven't saved the change to this file. That makes sense. All right, let's start at the top of this component and go down and see where we need to make changes. So in handle add restaurant, we're past the new restaurant name. That's actually maybe okay. I think I'm okay with, until we organize things differently, I'm okay with this function having the responsibility of creating a restaurant object. And actually, I like having that responsibility in the restaurant list rather than in that form component. At least for right now. I might change that in the future. So let's say here const new restaurant. And it's going to have a name field. We'll just call the field name. And then we'll use the new restaurant name value that was passed in. So now we have our new restaurant. Now, from extracting out of our state restaurants, and now the new value for restaurants we want is the new restaurant added in and the existing restaurant array spread out. So I think this will take this new restaurant and append it into a list, the array of restaurants. Next, cancel add restaurant, that's all the same. Handle choose restaurant. Yeah, this will be different. So I do want to handle like passing restaurants around in here rather than restaurant names. So let's assume that this is a restaurant. For right now, let's try to just change this one component. Even if we rather pass I guess we are going to want to pass the whole restaurant to dish list ultimately. But let's just start out by saying const restaurant name equals restaurant name. This way we're changing one component at a time, so I think I like that, and we'll come back to revisit changing this as well. Okay, in the render function, render method, when we extract the restaurant names, that's going to be restaurants instead. That's the data we're passing to flat list. And now, instead, for the key extractor, the unique value we want to put in instead of item is item.name. Someday we'll have IDs for our records, and then we'll be able to use those, but for now we'll use the name. Okay, so when we render the item is a restaurant instead, and so that's nice to have that there. The title is restaurant.name, and then as I said, I'd like it to pass the whole restaurant into handle choose restaurant, so let's pass that in there. So I think we're probably good. Yeah, I don't think we have a component test for the restaurant list component, but we'll let those run. Let's run our end-to-end test. Again, it's so great. I cannot overstate. This freedom to refactor is one of my favorite things about test-driven development. The fact that we don't have to think about the final object model for our restaurant. We can just start with something that's as simple as possible to meet the needs and then totally change it from a string into an object later. And the tests don't always pass on the first try. This time they did, which is really awesome. But even if they don't, that's okay. The tests tell you what might be broken, and so you can change it. I've been in events before. I've sat for hours and hours with people talking through what should the object model be, what should the data structure be. And so being able to defer those decisions till you need them is amazing. I love that I have not thought anything about how we're going to do the dish rating or anything like that. It's like we're just doing the minimum possible. Cool, so let's add this. Let's commit these changes. I'm just kind of briefly skimming here, but these all make sense to me. Refactor, let's see here, store restaurant objects instead of just name strings. All right, so the thing I said I wanted to come back to was, part of the reason that we're doing this is we want to pass the entire dish to the dish list navigation option, to the dish list screen. So this is exactly what we want to change. We don't care about extracting the restaurant name. We want to pass the whole restaurant over there. So that's great. So now this should be done for this component. Now we can just go over to the dish list and extract that. So here we want to get param restaurant and then get the name out of it there. And I guess really that is not going to blow up our test, but we'll be able to see if that's passing. Now looking down here. So now let's stick with dish names in this component state for now, because that might be some of what we get into next time. Let's see here. Is there anywhere else that the restaurant name causes a problem? Not necessarily. I do think we want to initialize the state of dish names though. Let's run the test while I'm thinking about that. So for now we could set the dishes here in place. Boy Kojak says, nice app. Thank you for that. The visuals are surely no credit to mine. They are React native elements. And it's only doing very basic stuff so far, but I'm enjoying TDDing it. So thanks for the compliment. Yeah, setting state. So I guess in this case, really, y'all who do React Native day to day might know better than me. But I think doing a constructor to set the state would work just fine here. This state equals. We'll move this over here. And I believe in the constructor, navigation is available because the props is. Oh yeah, actually props. Super props. Nice in its usefulness. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to rating these restaurants and the dishes. I never remember at certain kinds of restaurants which dishes I like. So it'll be fun to get it together. So we've got the props here. And then just down below, though, we've seen, actually not on this screen, but back here, that you can get to the navigation through this prop. So I think this will probably work. Let's get navigation out of that. And then here, let's say const restaurant equals navigation get param restaurant. Actually, we could even do dish names. Let's say the dish names are stored in the restaurant. This, I think, is going to require us to make a change back in the other file. So I'm going to go ahead and make it. I guess we could see if it blows up. But really, when we're creating a restaurant, we want to say, we'll stay with dish names for now, even though already at this point we can sort of see that that's going to cause a problem, that we're going to want dish objects soon. But this is changing one thing at a time. So this restaurant has dish names, and dish names passed into us is now what's provided there. And actually, we could even confirm in just a second that that's working by having a default dish or something like that. So let's see, sushi place, it opens, we're able to add a new dish. Cool. So let's, just to confirm the dish names are coming from the restaurant, let's just briefly, I don't think this is going to break any tests. Let's say there's a dish, water. Every restaurant has water. So at least in this country, other countries maybe is something fancier that everyone tends to drink. But here, we're boring and we go with water. So. All right, so water is there by default. So we see that we've now successfully passed a full object through React Navigation. And in this case, our tests have actually passed. Like adding water there has not broken anything. And I'll absolutely do that. Just adding things manually, temporarily, just to confirm that something's working if it doesn't feel like I need to have an end-to-end test, an automated test covering that. So I think we're still good. So now we have data being passed from the parent to the child screen. But check this out. I think we still have the same problem from before. If we leave the dish list page and go back to it, the dish we added is gone. So next time we're going to have to see how to do that. And there's a way you can do it that would seem very obvious. And then there's a way, and it might or might not work. So we're just going to have to check out and see here what happens. I just remembered, yeah, I was having trouble remembering, but I remember the thing that I totally tricked myself. I thought it would work when building an app just like this one, and then it didn't. So that'll be the cliffhanger from next time. You can think about it. I'll push up this PR, and you can think about how you might handle it to be able to preserve the state of the dish list in between different invocations. See if you can do it without adding any additional kind of state management tools and just using React component state. See if you run into the same trap that I ran into. It was entertaining. It was really interesting, actually. Thank you guys so much for joining. Those of you that joined in on the chat or just watched, those of you who are checking out this recording later, I'm really enjoying this. I'm glad that we've got some React navigation in place. This feels more like a fancy app, at least the kind of fancy apps that I like to have, utilitarian, and we're making some good progress. So I'll add those secondary features like the cancel button offline, and I'll do that in probably the same PR and merge it down. But next time we're going to get into state management, and we'll see. Maybe I'll convince myself over the week that we're just going to stick with React component state, or maybe we'll go something else. And this is very interesting. I found out recently that I have strong feelings about React state management solutions. So I want to hear what yours are. If you're listening to this, or I'll send out this question on Twitter as well, what is your favorite React native state management solution and why? And it's not a vote. I'll have to see what I feel comfortable using. But we'll see where we go and see where the adventure takes us. Thanks so much for joining. And again, hit me up on Twitch chat. Hit me up on Reactiflux at Josh Justice. Hit me up on Twitter at Coding It Wrong. The links are in the navigation in the show notes. And we'll catch you soon. Thanks for joining. See ya. Time to go to the slide. See ya.